Welcome to Flutter Teacher. In this video, we will learn how Dart works in development and deployment environment. So without wasting time, let's get started. Do you know, whenever you create any Dart or Flutter application, we have to go through two different phases, that is the development phase and the deployment phase. The development phase is the phase where you write, runs, debugs and test your application. On the other hand, the deployment phase is also called the production mode or release mode. It is the phase in which you are about to launch your final application to the end user. Let's understand the development of desktop or mobile application. In this case, on development phase, your application has to be compiled using the JIT, that is the just-in-time compiler, along with the Dart virtual machine. On the other hand, when you are about to deploy this application, instead of using the JIT, we have to use AOT, that is ahead of time compilation technique, and as a result, it can give you the native specific code as per your requirements. In case of web application, your program has to be compiled using the dartdevc, which is called as Dart Development Time Compiler. It compiles your Dart application into the JavaScript code. On the other hand, when the same application has to be deployed for final release, instead of using dartdevc, we have to use the Dart2JS compiler, which is known as Dart to JavaScript compiler, that converts your Dart code into optimized JavaScript code, which can be executed in any web browser. You might have a question, why Dart has these two different compilation techniques for development and for deployment? The answer is very simple. As a software developer, while developing application, I feel that there should be a fast development cycle and I should have a facility like dynamic compilation. On the other hand, the end user wants application should start as quickly as possible so that it should have the fast startup time, and your app must be optimized for the size and for the performance. So these two different things cannot be achieved using single compilation technique. That's the reason Dart has JIT and dartdevc in case of development side, and for deployment, Dart relies on the AOT and Dart2JS when it is about to deploy your app finally for the end user. Let's examine each of these sections in detail. Let's talk about the development phase of Dart. So there can be development of desktop or mobile application, and there can be a development of web application. In case of desktop and mobile application development, your program is given to JIT, that is just-in-time compiler. For those who don't know what is JIT, so before that, let me tell you about the normal compiler. You have a code, you compile it using a normal or traditional compiler that gives you some file and you will execute that one. Now imagine a situation where a source code needs to be modified. In this case, you have to stop the application, you need to go for changes. After that, you have to recompile your code and you have to rerun to get the output. Each and every time when we need modification in the source code, we have to stop the application and we have to recompile to get the result. So this is what the strategy in case of normal compiler. Now, what's the great thing in case of just-in-time compiler? Consider you have compiled your code using the JIT. In this case, when your program is under execution and we need to do some modification in the source code. So in this case, you don't need to stop your application and even you don't need to go for recompilation. Simply you have to perform the modification, save your code, and instantly you will find the result in your output. Now how this happens? Internally, JIT, that is a just-in-time compiler, performs the runtime translation of your code even if your program is under execution. This type of compilation is called as the dynamic compilation, and it is also referred as compilation on the fly. So make sure that JIT is a secret that enables the Flutter to implement the hot reload. Now the combination of JIT along with the DVM, that is the Dart virtual machine, this enables you to dispatch your code in any of the device. That is independent of your device architecture, it's possible to dispatch your code in any kind of device. When you go for executing your Flutter application, it doesn't matter what device you have connected, whether you have connected your Android phone or maybe the iOS phone, or maybe you are running application for the desktop. So irrespective of device architecture, independent of your hardware devices, it's possible to dispatch your code in any of the devices. So this is how the development of desktop and mobile application works in case of Flutter and Dart. Let's talk about the development of web application. In this case, a Dart program is compiled using the compiler called dartdevc, which is known as Dart Development and Compiler. This is a kind of smart compiler that converts your Dart code into highly optimized JavaScript code, which can be executed in the Google Chrome. Why I'm saying dartdevc is a smart compiler? Because when we have some modification in the Dart application, instead of compiling entire code, it will only compile the specific code, and that compiled code will be dispatched in your final output. So this technique definitely speeds up your development time. Let's talk about deploying the Dart application. Dart application can be deployed for 4 different strategies: deploying the standard application, deploying using AOT compiled, deploying the web application, and deploying the native application. Let's talk about deploying the standalone application. In this case, your Dart program is compiled using the normal Dart compiler, and such a compiled code can be executed only in the machine where Dart virtual machine is available. So make sure that when we talk about the standalone application, it's compulsory to have a Dart virtual machine. Without the DVM, it's not possible to execute the standalone programs. Now the question arises, how I can get this DVM? You can get it with the Dart SDK or with the Flutter SDK. Let's talk about very important part in Flutter and Dart application deployment using the AOT compiled. In this case, your Dart program is compiled using the technique called AOT, that is ahead of time compilation. This is the kind of compilation that happens before your program is being deployed. Now, using the AOT compilation, it has a kind of translation that translates your Dart program into single executable binary file for specific platform. That is, we can get the .apk for Android, we can get the .iap for iOS, and we can get the .exe for Windows. So this secret is basically used by the Dart and Flutter to have the feature called multi-platform deployment. Let's talk about deploying the web application. In case of web application deployment, your Dart application is compiled using the Dart2.js, that is the Dart2 JavaScript compiler. It converts your Dart application into optimized JavaScript code, which can be executed in any of the web browser. Now let's talk about deploying the native application. In this case, your Dart program is being compiled using the Dart2 native compiler. Using Dart2 native compiler, we can compile or convert your Dart application into platform-specific code, such as for Windows, for Linux, and for Mac. That's it for this video. If you really like this video and if you found this helpful, then don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and hit the bell notification to get my latest videos.